Have you ever stood at the edge of the ocean during a storm? The thunderous waves crash against the shore with seemingly unstoppable force. The raw power of nature in its most dramatic display can make even the bravest among us feel small and vulnerable. Yet there is something oddly comforting about this display of power. Perhaps it's because deep down, we understand that there is an order to this chaos, a design greater than ourselves. What if I told you that one of the oldest poems in human history captured this exact sentiment over 2,500 years ago? A poem so powerful that it has been recited by millions throughout the centuries as a source of comfort in troubling times? The ancient Hebrews had a fascinating tradition. Every Friday evening as the Sabbath approached, they would recite Psalm 93, a brief but profound declaration of divine sovereignty amid chaos. This tradition continues to this day in Jewish communities around the world. But why? What made this particular psalm so special that it became a cornerstone of weekly worship? The answer might surprise you. The year is approximately 586 BCE. The magnificent First Temple of Jerusalem, built by King Solomon around 957 BCE, has just been destroyed by the Babylonians. The people of Judah are being led away in chains to exile. Their world has quite literally collapsed around them. In this moment of utter despair, when it seemed that chaos had triumphed over order, the prophets and psalmists reminded the people of an essential truth. Earthly kingdoms may fall, but there is a throne that cannot be shaken, a kingdom that cannot be conquered, a king whose reign is eternal. This is the heart of Psalm 93, a defiant declaration of faith in troubled times. It reminds us that beyond the chaos of our world, there is a divine order that remains unshaken. Let's explore this ancient poem together and discover why its message resonates just as powerfully today as it did millennia ago. Psalm 93 begins with a bold proclamation. The Lord reigns, he is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed in majesty and armed with strength. Indeed, the world is established, firm and secure. Notice how the psalm begins, not with a request, not with a complaint, but with a declaration. The Lord reigns. The Hebrew word used here is Malik, which denotes active rulership. It's not just that God exists or that God has power. It's that God is actively governing the universe at this very moment. This powerful opening would have been revolutionary in the ancient Near East. While neighboring cultures depicted their gods as capricious, often fighting among themselves for dominion, the Hebrew psalmist presents YHWH, the God of Israel, as the uncontested sovereign of the universe. The imagery continues with God, robed in majesty. The language here evokes a royal coronation ceremony. In ancient times, when a king was crowned, he would be clothed in royal garments signifying his authority. What we see here is essentially a cosmic coronation scene. God clothed not in physical garments, but in majesty itself. Then comes another significant phrase, armed with strength. The Hebrew word for armed here literally means to gird oneself, as a warrior would prepare for battle by fastening armor. The psalm presents God not as a distant, disinterested deity, but as an active warrior king who engages with the world. Your throne was established long ago. You are from all eternity. This verse introduces a profound concept. God's kingdom isn't new or temporary. While earthly kingdoms rise and fall, as the Israelites had witnessed firsthand with the fall of Jerusalem, God's rule transcends time itself. Archaeological discoveries throughout the Middle East tell the story of mighty empires that once seemed invincible: the Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. Each believed their rule would last forever. Each eventually collapsed under the weight of history. Consider this. When Psalm 93 was written, the mighty Neo-Babylonian Empire ruled much of the known world. Today, it exists only in history books and museum artifacts. The psalm writer, living at a time when his nation had been conquered, boldly declares that there is a kingdom that predates all earthly powers and will outlast them all. The Hebrew phrase translated, "from all eternity," is Meolam, which carries the sense of "from ancient times," or "from before the beginning." The psalmist is making a profound philosophical claim about God's relationship to time itself. God doesn't exist within time as we do, but transcends it entirely. This concept would later be developed by philosophers like Augustine of Hippo, who in his Confessions, written around 400 CE, explored how God exists not in time, but with time as his creation. Modern physicists like Albert Einstein, who revolutionized our understanding of time in the early 20th century, would acknowledge that time itself is not absolute but relative, a created dimension rather than an eternal constant. Now the psalm shifts to one of the most powerful metaphors in ancient literature. The seas have lifted up, Lord, the seas have lifted up their voice. The seas have lifted up their pounding waves. Mightier than the thunder of the great waters, mightier than the breakers of the sea. The Lord on high is mighty. To appreciate the power of this imagery, we must understand what the sea represented in ancient Near Eastern thought. Unlike our modern romantic view of the ocean, ancient peoples often saw the sea as the embodiment of chaos, danger, and destruction. In Canaanite mythology, which was familiar to the ancient Israelites, the god Baal had to battle Yam, the sea deity, to establish order. In Babylonian creation myths, the creator god Marduk defeats the sea monster Tiamat to create the world. Across cultures, the untamed sea represented primal chaos that threatened to undo the order of creation. When archaeological excavations began in the ancient city of Ugarit, modern-day Ras Shamra in Syria, in 1929, scholars discovered tablets dating back to around 1400 to 1200 BC containing these mythological battles. The discoveries revolutionized our understanding of the cultural context in which the Hebrew Bible was written. Against this backdrop, Psalm 93 makes a radical claim. It acknowledges the power of the chaotic waters. The seas have lifted up their voice, but declares that God is mightier than the thunder of the great waters. The psalm doesn't deny the reality of chaos and suffering in the world. It affirms that there is a power greater still. For the Jewish exiles in Babylon, this would have been profoundly reassuring. Their world had been overturned by forces that seemed unstoppable. Yet the psalm reminded them that even these forces are subject to divine authority. The psalm concludes with a powerful affirmation. Your statutes, Lord, stand firm. Holiness adorns your house for endless days. The word translated as statutes is edot in Hebrew, which refers to God's testimonies or decrees. These aren't arbitrary rules, but reliable witnesses to God's character and will. Like the laws of nature that govern our physical universe, God's moral laws stand firm regardless of human opinion or behavior. In ancient Israel, the concept of God's house primarily referred to the temple in Jerusalem, the magnificent structure built by King Solomon around 957 BCE, which had been destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. For a people grieving the loss of their sacred center, this verse offered hope. Though the physical temple lay in ruins, God's holiness remained undiminished. The Hebrew word for holiness here is kodesh, which carries the sense of being set apart, utterly unique, transcendent. It's not just that God acts in holy ways. God is holiness personified. This holiness isn't a temporary attribute, but adorns God's house. For endless days, or lowerek yamim, literally, to the length of days. When the Second Temple was eventually rebuilt around 516 BCE under Zerubbabel, and later expanded by Herod the Great beginning in 20 BCE, this psalm would have taken on renewed significance. Archaeological excavations at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem have revealed the immense scale and grandeur of Herod's temple complex, a fitting earthly reflection of the divine majesty celebrated in this psalm. So what does this ancient psalm mean for us today? In a world still plagued by chaos, natural disasters, pandemics, wars, economic uncertainties, Psalm 93 offers three enduring truths. First, it reminds us that chaos does not have the final word. The seas may roar, the waves may crash, but they cannot overthrow the established order of the universe. There is a purpose and design to creation that remains, even when our limited perspective can't discern it. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., speaking in the midst of America's civil rights struggles in 1968, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." This confidence in an underlying moral order echoes the psalmist's faith that beyond apparent chaos, there is divine governance. Second, Psalm 93 offers perspective on our personal struggles. When life feels overwhelming, when the metaphorical waves threaten to drown us, the psalm reminds us that there is a power greater than our problems. History bears witness to countless individuals who have found strength in this truth. Consider Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps. In his landmark 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl observed that those who survived the horrors of the camps were often those who maintained faith in some transcendent meaning beyond their immediate suffering. Like the ancient psalmist, they looked beyond present chaos to an enduring order. Third, the psalm challenges us to align ourselves with the eternal rather than the temporary. If God's statutes stand firm forever, wisdom lies in building our lives on these enduring principles rather than the shifting sands of cultural trends or personal preference. Throughout history, Psalm 93 has been incorporated into various worship traditions. In Jewish practice, it became one of the 6 Psalms, Psalms 95 to 99, 29, known as the Kabbalat Shabbat, sequence recited on Friday evening to welcome the Sabbath. In Christian liturgical traditions, Psalm 93 is often associated with the Festival of Ascension, celebrating Christ's enthronement at God's right hand. The early church fathers, including Augustine writing in the 5th century, interpreted this psalm as prophetically pointing to Christ's reign. In the Eastern Orthodox tradition, this psalm is part of the Royal Hour service before Epiphany, connecting it to the manifestation of divine kingship. Across traditions, believers have found in these ancient words a timeless declaration of faith in divine sovereignty. Let's take a moment to reflect on the complete text of this remarkable psalm. The Lord reigns, he is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed in majesty and armed with strength. Indeed, the world is established, firm and secure. Your throne was established long ago. You are from all eternity. The seas have lifted up, Lord, the seas have lifted up their voice. The seas have lifted up their pounding waves. Mightier than the thunder of the great waters, mightier than the breakers of the sea. The Lord on high is mighty. Your statutes, Lord, stand firm. Holiness adorns your house for endless days. Just 95 words in English translation. Less than a minute to recite aloud. Yet within these few lines lies a worldview that has sustained millions through life's greatest challenges. Historical records show that Psalm 93 and other psalms of divine kingship gained special significance during times of national crisis. During the Maccabean revolt against Antiochus IV Epiphanes around 167 to 160 BC, when the Jerusalem temple was desecrated, these psalms became battle cries for those fighting to restore proper worship. During the Jewish-Roman Wars of 66 to 73 CE, culminating in the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE by the Roman general Titus, later emperor, these psalms again provided spiritual sustenance to a community facing existential threat. Throughout the Middle Ages, as Jewish communities faced persecution and expulsion across Europe, from England in 1290, France in 1306, Spain in 1492, the weekly recitation of Psalm 93 served as a powerful reminder that human injustice does not have the final word. Similar patterns appear across Christian history. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 CE, plunging Europe into what was once called the Dark Ages, Augustine's City of God, completed around 426 CE, reminded believers that beyond the earthly city lay an eternal kingdom unshaken by barbarian invasions. During the upheavals of the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, both Catholics and Protestants found in the Psalms of divine kingship a source of stability amid religious turmoil. Martin Luther's famous hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," written around 1527, echoes themes from these psalms. In more recent history, during World War II, this psalm spoke powerfully to people facing unprecedented destruction. Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapira, imprisoned in the Warsaw Ghetto from 1939 until his death in 1943, wrote sermons on the Torah that regularly referenced the Psalms of divine sovereignty as a counter to Nazi claims of ultimate power. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian executed by the Nazis in April 1945 for his resistance activities, found in the Psalter, including Psalm 93, a source of spiritual resistance against tyranny. In his book, Psalms, the Prayer Book of the Bible, written in 1940, Bonhoeffer emphasized how the Psalms teach us to pray amid suffering. Today, Psalm 93 continues to speak to our complex world. In an age of environmental crisis, the Psalm's imagery of God's power over chaotic waters takes on new relevance. Will human-induced climate change overwhelm us? The Psalm doesn't offer simplistic answers, but reminds us that creation itself has a resilience built into it by its creator. In an era of political polarization and instability, the Psalm's vision of an eternal throne stands in stark contrast to the temporary nature of human power structures. No matter who occupies earthly seats of power, the Psalm declares there is a higher sovereignty at work in human affairs. In a time when many struggle with anxiety and uncertainty about the future, this ancient poem offers a perspective that transcends our immediate circumstances. It doesn't promise freedom from life's storms, but assures us that the storms do not have the final word. The beauty of Psalm 93 lies partly in its universality. While it emerged from a specific historical and cultural context, ancient Israel facing national catastrophe, its themes transcend time and culture. Scholars studying ancient wisdom traditions have noted fascinating parallels across cultures. The ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at, cosmic order and justice, shares similarities with the Hebrew understanding of God's established world. The Chinese philosophical concept of the Tao as the underlying principle of the universe echoes aspects of divine order in Psalm 93. These cross-cultural resonances suggest that the psalm speaks to something fundamental in human experience, our deep longing for order amid chaos, for justice amid oppression, for meaning amid suffering. Contemporary psychological research supports the value of this perspective. Studies in resilience psychology, pioneered by researchers like Emmy Werner in the 1970s, and developed by Martin Seligman and others into the 21st century, have found that individuals who maintain belief in some form of meaning beyond their immediate circumstances show greater resilience in facing adversity. A landmark 2010 meta-analysis published in the journal Health Psychology reviewed over 400 studies and found significant positive correlations between religious/spiritual beliefs and various measures of psychological well-being. The ancient wisdom of Psalm 93 finds surprising validation in modern scientific research. But beyond theological concepts and historical significance, Psalm 93 invites personal reflection. Think about the seas in your own life, those chaotic forces that threaten to overwhelm you. Perhaps it's a health crisis, relationship difficulties, financial pressures, or simply the relentless pace of modern life. The psalm doesn't promise that these waters will always be calm. Rather, it assures us that there is a power greater than the chaos. The waves may crash, but they break against something more enduring than themselves. Consider also what it means that God's statutes stand firm. In a culture that often treats moral truth as relative and personal preference as supreme, the psalm suggests there are moral constants woven into the fabric of reality itself. Just as we can't defy the law of gravity without consequences, perhaps we can't indefinitely violate moral laws without creating disorder in our lives and communities. As we come to the end of our exploration of this ancient psalm, let's return to where we began, standing at the edge of the ocean, watching powerful waves crash against the shore. There's something humbling about such moments, a reminder of our smallness in the face of forces far greater than ourselves. Yet there's also something strangely comforting in the regularity of those waves, in the boundaries that contain even the mightiest oceans. Psalm 93 captures this paradox perfectly. It acknowledges the reality of chaos in our world while affirming a deeper order. It doesn't offer easy answers or promise freedom from life's storms. Instead, it invites us to see our storms from a broader perspective, as significant but ultimately contained within a greater reality. Whatever waves you're facing today, whatever chaos threatens to overwhelm you, may you find comfort in this ancient declaration. The Lord reigns. Beyond the immediate and the visible, beyond the temporary crises that demand our attention, there is a throne that cannot be shaken, a kingdom that cannot be overthrown, a king whose reign is eternal. And perhaps in that assurance, you too might find the strength to stand firm when your own seas roar. Before you go, I want to personally invite you to be part of our growing community here at Prayer Universe. If this video touched your heart or brought you peace, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a prayer or message that can uplift your spirit. But most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, share just one word or phrase of motivation that this video inspired in you, whether it's hope, gratitude, peace, or something else. Your words matter deeply to us because they help guide the content we create for this channel. Together, let's build a space filled with faith, encouragement, and connection. Thank you for being here, and remember, every prayer counts. See you in the next one.